Stop calling Ryomen Sukuna a fraud for spamming Binding Vows. When Sukuna backed himself into a corner against Satoru Gojo and the Shinjuku raid team, he pulled multiple Binding Vows out of thin air to survive impossible situations. The entire fandom immediately screamed plot armor. They called him a cheat, a fraud, and a fraudster who was handed victory by the author. But if you actually break down the underlying mechanics of cursed energy, Sukuna didn't break the rules. Sukuna is simply the only sorcerer in history who realized the Jujutsu universe doesn't have an anti-cheat system. To understand why Sukuna conquered the Heian era and destroyed modern Jujutsu society, you have to look at how modern sorcerers view Binding Vows compared to how Sukuna views them. Modern sorcerers treat Binding Vows like a sacred, emotional religion. Look at Kasumi Miwa in the Shibuya incident. When she threw everything into a single swing against Kenjaku, she swore a binding vow. I will never swing a katana again if you give me all the power I will ever have right now. It was a solemn, permanent, life-destroying sacrifice born out of sheer emotional desperation. And what happened? Kenjaku caught the blade with his bare hands. She permanently ruined her future as a sword user for a single, useless strike because she treated the system like a god demanding blood. Sukuna doesn't treat Jujutsu like a religion. He treats it like a programming language. And to him, Binding Vows aren't emotional sacrifices. They are raw developer console commands. While modern sorcerers make permanent, tragic sacrifices, Sukuna makes real-time, hyper-specific microtransactions. He understands that the universe has no moral compass. Cursed energy doesn't care about honor, justice, or emotional weight. It only operates on a strict mathematical equation, equivalent exchange. Look at how Sukuna executed Gojo Satoru with the world-cutting slash. Normally, to cast the world-cutting slash, Sukuna requires a specific hand sign, direct physical targeting, and active chance. But during his fight with Gojo, Sukuna had only one functional arm and was on the verge of total collapse from Hollow Purple. In that fraction of a second, Sukuna traded a future inconvenience for an immediate execution. He essentially submitted a line of code to the universe. Let me fire the world-cutting slash right now with 0 hand signs and only one hand, and in exchange, I promise that every single time I cast this move for the rest of my life, I will require 2 hands, full chance, and directional targeting. The cosmic laws of Jujutsu didn't care that the trade was unfair to Gojo. The universe accepted the transaction because the mathematical value of the restriction matched the benefit of the instant cast. Sukuna didn't break the game, he exploited the user agreement. Even in his fight against the entire Jujutsu High raid squad, Sukuna repeatedly used micro vows. He shrank his domain expansion's effective range to boost its output, opened his domain's barrier to increase its radius, and sacrificed internal efficiency to bypass domain burnout. While characters like Yuta and Hikari use standard domain mechanics, Sukuna was actively rewriting his technique's source code mid-combat. The ultimate irony of Jujutsu Kaisen is that Satoru Gojo was born with the greatest genetic lottery in history, the Six Eyes and the Limitless technique. Gojo was a prodigy who mastered Jujutsu as an art form, but Sukuna didn't rely on genetic luck alone. He spent 1,000 years studying the precise mechanics of the soul, cursed energy, and space itself. Sukuna wasn't a fraud who cheated his way to victory. He won because while everyone else was treating Jujutsu like a martial art, Ryomen Sukuna was the only fighter in history who actually read the terms of service.